Hello, dear. You're early.
Hello, darling. Hard day?
Well...
Never mind, let's talk summer holidays.
Oh, yes, that's better than a tonic.
Here you are. Spain, France, Italy, anywhere you like.
Do you know where I'd really like to go?
Just name it.
Back to Butlins.
I hoped you'd say that.
50 years ago this Easter, a showman called Billy Butlin borrowed £25,000 from the bank and took the gamble of his life. To many a seaside landlady, his idea must have seemed preposterous. To the working man, a week's holiday for a week's pay, 4 meals a day and all entertainment free, represented value undreamed of. In April 1936, Billy Butlin opened his first ever holiday camp at Skegness, an idea that would become an institution that would become a legend, and so would the man himself.
And I only ever saw him once, and he came down to Clacton when I was there to sort of do his annual inspection or whatever it was, and he just sort of marched around the camp with all these guys walking behind him, you know, and we're all terrified. But he actually walked through the dining hall, you know, just marched straight through it very quickly, you know. It was like sort of like a prisoner of war camp, really, wasn't it, you know. The commandant is here, you know. And he walked around looking at everything, and I was standing by the door as he came out, and he stopped as he got to the door and turned to one of his aides and said, "On table 17, there's a sauce bottle, and the label is torn." And just walked on, and I thought, wow, that's really something.
Cut. Right, everybody, that's it.
Got a word for the Daily Globe, Tony?
Oh, hello, Peter, of course. Another success in the can, Tony? What plans now? Holiday plans.
Bermuda? Tahiti?
No, it's back to Butlins for me.
Butlins?
That really is news.
He really was a stickler for detail, and he was quite ruthless, sometimes in the earlier years anyway, when the business was being built up, on his treatment of people. I mean, if they made a mistake or did things wrong or something like that, I mean, you know, he was quite ruthless.
Did you ever see him fire anybody?
Oh, yes. I saw him fire a lot of people. Sometimes fairly, in my view, sometimes unfairly. But on the other hand, he was very paternalistic. I know that the two things don't quite seem to go together, but in many respects, he was very kind and considerate.
Here's your tea, Miss Sales.
Oh, thank you.
Gosh, isn't this exciting? I do envy you your job.
Serving tea?
But at 20,000 feet.
Yes, I must admit, I do love it.
And I suppose for holidays you can stop off anywhere you like in the world.
Well, I could, but I don't. I always go to Butlins.
Instead of Honolulu?
And I called the tombola, which was bingo in those days, which is how I supplemented my income. I used to cheat. I embezzled. I worked out a system that I could get £60 a week cash to help the money along. And I did this for an entire season. And in those days, Bill Butlin used to come at the end of the season and have a drink with the Redcoats. And he said to me, you've done a very good season for us this year. Will you be coming back next year? I said, well, the wages are not very good, Mr. Butlin. And he said to me, well, I'll tell you what, you tell me how you've been robbing me of £60 a week in the bingo and I'll double your wages. And he knew it was going on, you know.
It was in February 1921 that an ex-Canadian serviceman stepped off a cattle boat at Liverpool with £5 in his pocket, hitchhiked to Bristol, and inherited a family tradition. Billy Butlin became a travelling showman. He was a natural who made his own breaks, and the biggest was to secure exclusive rights to importing Dodgem cars into Britain. Before he was 30, he opened his first permanent amusement park at Skegness. When he opened his first holiday camp, he was 37.
He was a genius who was never properly educated. He couldn't spell. And when he wrote very badly indeed.
Did you like him?
Did I like him? I thought he was the most wonderful man I'd ever met. Because the thing is that he always, he could think what the people wanted. He knew what people wanted. And he had his own ideas of checking up to find out if that was right.
1,000 people would be catered for at the first camp, all of them paying cash. Nobody quite knew what to expect of Butlins, and in the event, Alan Wildman, a local tailor, remembers opening day as a sight he could scarcely believe.
When I say crowd, I mean crowds, queuing up at card tables with green baize tops. The flimsy ones that you fold up and put down. And these fellows behind the tables on, again, the rickety sort of chairs, another fellow standing at the side of him, these people paying in notes, pound notes, which were growing into heaps on the table, and literally heaps. And after about 5 minutes of watching them, a man would come along from anywhere, nobody seemed to know who he was, and collect these huge great lumps of notes and cart them off.
The campers had paid for a good time and they were going to have one, despite the fact that some chalets were still being built around them. And what seemed at first sight to be total disaster was put right with a magician's flair.
We met a couple of girls from Sheffield, they were nurses, and I always remember this because it was about 1:30 on the Saturday, we'd had our lunch, and we come across these two young ladies, myself and my friend, and they were a little bit upset, we could tell that, so being gentlemen, we went asking what was the matter, and they said, well, we've been allocated a certain chalet, I can't remember its number, but look at it, it's over there. And of course, there it was, yes, it was over there. A back wall, 2 side walls, no roof and no doors. So, what are we going to do? They said it'd be ready for 5 o'clock or 1:30. I says, well, it will be. But I says, tell you what, if it isn't, you can have ours and we'll go complain and they'll find us somewhere. We'll doss down in the ballroom or something. Anyway, strange to relate, we came back, myself and my mate, we left these girls, we came back at just gone 5, and there was the chalet, and there was the 2 girls, and we're just moving in. The roof was on, the electrics were in, the curtains were up, door was on, they moved in. By 5:30 they were in, and there were 7 others likewise down the road.
When Bill Butlin built this place back in the 30s, he gave the camp its own sewage farm. This field is where it used to be, and this concrete pillbox-looking thing was the original septic tank. It's not used now, of course. There's a much more modern one miles away. The thing was, though, he didn't want the campers to know about it, and he certainly didn't want them coming down here and looking at it. So he put up a big sign on that gate over there saying, beware of the dog. Until shortly afterwards, a camper approached the great man and said, excuse me, Mr. Butlin, you know that dog of yours? He said, yes. He said, it doesn't half smell. Skegness was developed and its capacity doubled. Butlins at Clacton became camp number 2 a couple of years later. But as Billy Butlin's empire was growing, so was Adolf Hitler's. War broke out and Butlins at Clacton became an internment camp for Germans living in Britain. Skegness, meanwhile, became a naval base, HMS Royal Arthur. George Melly was just one of thousands who were sent there, unaware of what the camp had been in peacetime and unprepared for what he found.
We had to go and pick up our irons, knives, forks and spoons, at the annex to one of the dining halls, which before the war had clearly been a sort of faked-out village pub, because there was a facade of a pub called Ye Olde Pig and Whistle, with a sign hanging down, and a wren handing you your knives and forks and things through the mullioned window. And in the middle of this room, growing from the floorboards up to the ceiling, was a huge fake plaster of Paris tree with the branches vanishing into a ceiling which was painted to resemble clouds, you know. So I was very keen on the surrealist movement, and I thought that they'd somehow taken over the Navy. And then we went into the dining hall, which was sort of Art Deco, which I thought was very nice. And then we had to have all our tests, you know, the medical checkups and so on. And as I recall, the sort of drop your trousers cough test took place in a room which was called the Pirates' Cave. What is this? You know, there were papier-mâché skeletons embedded in rocks, and this sort of doctor and a troop of shivering sailors marching past him.
George Melly was also sent to HMS Glendower, Butlins at Pwllheli.
But I had a lot of funny experiences there. They had mounted a Bofors gun on the cliff top. It's rather more dramatic, the Pwllheli camp, than the Skeggy one. And there was this Geordie petty officer who showed us how to shoot this gun. And he gave us a lecture about how effective the gun was, you know. It was a really effective gun. And then he said, for instance, you see that seagull? Well, there's this poor seagull. He didn't call it a seagull, actually he called it a shitehawk, which was a naval slang for one. You see that shitehawk over there? Yes, we all said, no shitehawk, one feather drifting down towards the North Wales grey-green sea.
A man we seem to have seen before somewhere looks down from a balcony in Whitehall.
The war ended and Billy Butlin got his camps back. And Britain, meanwhile, was ready for a holiday.
All the chaps had come back from the war and they came to Butlins. Food was scarce, but they got plenty of food at Butlins, you know, a certain type of food, but they enjoyed it. Nobody had any money to spend, so they didn't have any holiday clothes. They wore old suits and they wore summer dresses, but that didn't matter. And there was no thought of going abroad in those days, because all the men had already been abroad. They'd been fighting in Italy and France and Germany, and they were glad to get back alive, so nobody wanted to go abroad. And they had a super time. People joined in things and thoroughly enjoyed themselves. And women, the women in the family, for the first time in their lives probably, didn't have to make the beds, didn't have to do any cooking, didn't have to do any washing up. And everybody was glad because we were facing a brave new world after the war. And everybody was optimistic. We were entering this wonderful era. So everybody was enthusiastic.
It's in catering for the family holiday and giving the housewife and mother a rest from shopping, cooking, and the everlasting laundry, that the holiday camps play one of their strongest cards. Imagine being able to dance, knowing that if your baby starts fretting for you, a dulcet voice over the loudspeaker will broadcast a minor SOS for you. In 1948, 1 in every 20 holidaymakers went to these camps, and another 200,000 failed to get in.
The first week we came here, the sunshine was blazing hot. It must have been in the 80s or more. And I was foolish enough to strip down to the waist and enjoy this sun, unfortunately. 2 days after, the skin on my back was like a load of loose stripe, and I couldn't sleep for 2 nights. You remember that,
Yes,
because you caught something similar,
yeah,
didn't you?
well, we had it on our knees and our legs. It was really hot.
It doesn't suit everybody, of course, this being called to rise and shine, this being tempted into physical jerks, this touch of the route march about hiking. You may shake your head over these mass-produced holidays, this flavor of regimentation, but it takes all sorts to make a world.
There was also a fancy dress on for everybody. Well, I borrowed a fancy dress from Butlins. I went as a Dutch girl, and my friend went as Cinderella. And we danced together till up come 2 cowboys. And, of course, separated us, and we danced with these cowboys all night.
And I was jealous about that.
Hey, and we thought, oh, you know, fancy getting 2 men and we married. But however,
Terrible.
they had to put in an appearance, and of course the cowboys had to disappear.
And so they did. I suppose so.
But we were young then, you know, it was enjoyable.
They had this terrific thunderstorm one night. And, I mean, the camp was flooded, literally, to about 3 feet deep. And, I mean, all the drains, nothing was happening and all this sort of stuff. And we all woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning. We were, get out there, you know, we've got to rescue the South Seas Coffee Bar, this magnificent place. So we go walking up to the South Seas Coffee Bar, and it's up to about here, you know, the water on us, you know. And my pal's there walking by the side of me, Eddie, and suddenly I look round and he just disappeared, you know. We went down a drain, you know. We saw him about a quarter of an hour later. But we got to the South Seas Coffee Bar, and every camper that was on that camp, about 2,000 campers, were there. And they were emptying the water out, they were cleaning the tables and everything. And one old boy said to me, he said, marvellous, isn't it? He said, it's just like the war.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Said good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Well, welcome to Butlins. We're spinning the wheel every night for a bottle of wine.
A lot of people had cause to be grateful to Billy Butlin, not just campers, nor indeed the charities for whom he helped raise millions, but successive generations of men and women who wore a blazer more readily identifiable than the England cricket team, the Butlin Redcoats.
Table 68. Where are you? Come on, don't be shy now. You've just won yourself a bottle of Norton Shandon, 1957. Better known as Dandelion and Burdock.
And it gave me fantastic experience, because it gave me a bottle that actors never get, or entertainers, because you really had to wade into those campers and entertain them and never stop talking and never stop smiling.
We used to walk around the camp, you know, smiling at everybody and all this sort of stuff. And there were old campers who'd been there sort of like since started, you know, and thousands of badges down here and all that. And they were the ones you used to look out for. And if you didn't say good morning to them, they'd report you to the sort of like the governor on the camp and that sort of thing. This redcoat did not say good morning and did not smile and all that. But I mean, you got to such a stage with the smiling bit that the end of that season, I mean, you smiled at everybody, you see, it was like automatic. And I remember Eddie and I walking up Oxford Street. We'd been finished at Butlins for about a week. We'd been there nearly 6 months, you know. Walking up Oxford Street and smiling at everybody. We couldn't stop smiling. We thought we were still in the camp, you see. And I mean, people are turning around in London. We don't smile at people in London, do you know? What are these two up to, you know? God.
Apart from refereeing the boxing and the wrestling, we did about 9 shows a week. About 9 shows a week.
You never had to take on campers, did you, as a wrestler or a boxer yourself?
Yes, I did. What happened, me being a little man, I mean, these great, vast men used to come to and well, this man's going to teach us to take care of themselves. And we used to work from a boxing ring with a heavy mat on. And I had some hairy times with them, and I thought, well, this won't do. So I broke one's shoulder one day. I thought I'd got to put it... And Bill Butlin said there's no more jiu-jitsu on the camp. But I purposely broke the man's shoulder to put a stop to it before I got hurt. I hope he's going to watch this. He'll be after me, won't he?
So what were the redcoat duties you had to do?
Well, that was everything, you know, dancing with the ugly birds and, you know, taking the kids to the fair and all this sort of stuff and marking out football pitches and all the usual gags. Are you fond of music? Yes, right, move that piano and all that sort of stuff. You know, so the redcoat duties were actually good fun, though. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
There was a vast bar, I think it was called Trader Vic's or somewhere or the other, where I would give an exhibition each week. And there was a sleeper hold, which is called the Laughing Death, where I could put 2 hands onto you and just talk to you and smile and tell you a joke, and you would go into a comatose state that is near death, as is, and then bring you back. It's called recovery by shock. And I said to the camp attendant, I want to do this within it. He said, well, not with a camper, you won't. So he said, but Wilf Curtis, who's the vicar, he said, would you? And Wilf said, yes, I'll do it. And I used to send him to heaven once a week. I'd put him down and he would quietly die, and I'd bring him back.
We all wanted to... most of the redcoats wanted to be sort of performers of some sort or another. And, but we had some redcoats who really weren't redcoats at all, you see. Because when the campers used to arrive on a Saturday at the reception and all this sort of thing, there'd be these stunning bird redcoats all sort of helping them with their keys and showing them the place and all this sort of stuff. And the blokes used to love this, didn't they? The young campers, well, God, blimey, look at that one and all this sort of stuff. And actually, they were the dancers from the redcoat, from the review company there, you know. And all they ever did in the way of redcoat duties was welcome all the campers on a Saturday. And these poor geezers had arrived to see this fantastic-looking bird, you know. They'd spend the rest of the week looking to find her again, and they never did, you know.
How to eat spaghetti gracefully. However, on this occasion, all that is being thrown to the winds in the cause of speed, for this is a spaghetti eating race. The location is a holiday camp at Clacton, and what the competitors may lack in experience, they make up for in enthusiasm. They're under starters' orders, and they're off.
You made your own fun, and if there's one cross Butlins has had to bear in its 50 years, it is that campers were forced to take part in communal jollity. Tosh. Most of them couldn't wait to get stuck in.
Hey, by gum, we give you some clog. Hey, we have such fun when we give you some clog. We're from the north of Watford Gap, and we all wear clogs and a big flat cap. Hey, by gum, we give it some clog. When we hear brass band, we give it some clog. Hey, we feel really grand when we give it some clog. After 2 black puddings and a nice oxtail, we'll swiddle it down with a bucket full of ale. Hey, by gum, we give it some clog. Hey, by gum. Hey, by gum. Now when we dance at Butlins, we'll be giving it some clog and singing hey, by gum.
Talent contest hopefuls, and you're looking at the favourites.
two Butlins tramps, sometimes Skegness cramps, and we're never not happy unless we're in camp.
I'm Fred.
I'm Joe, and sometimes we're low. Those bingo balls can be such cads. We'll swank in the pool rooms and dance in the ballrooms and watch Butlins value pack shows. 'Cause we're two Butlins contented beaux. Oh yeah.
Margaret Wilson, Mary Merrill. Have I got that right?
Yes.
Now, which of you wrote that song?
Me.
And that's for this year's talent contest?
Yes.
So how often have you rehearsed it?
This is the third day, actually.
The third day solid rehearsal. Tell me about the gear, by the way. Did you make that yourself?
Yes. Yes.
Now, how long have you been going for these talent contests?
It's about 7 to 8 years, actually.
And how have you been doing in them?
Been winning. We've won every year.
You've won all of them?
All of them.
Oh, and they still let you come back?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, actually, they usually say, you still. I think they think we're two crazy housewives, you see. We let us hair down.
Margaret and Mary did win, and don't bet against them this year either. It is, of course, just a bit of fun, to be taken sometimes very seriously indeed. Roy Hudd.
We had a pram race, you see, and they used to have York House, Gloucester House, and all these different things. And I mean, the rivalry was fantastic. It was like being at school, you know. I mean, everyone used to be for their houses. And I had an old girl in this pram, and I'm pushing her along. She was over 80, this old girl, you know. And I'm pushing her along. She's saying, "Come on, love, come on, get to the front. We've got your win for York House," and all this, you know. So I go galloping along. We hit something in the road, a stone or something, and she came out of this thing and hit her head on the floor, on the concrete. And I thought, oh, blimey, you know, what have I done, you know? And she was absolutely unconscious, you know. And she sort of just started to come round like that. And I said, "Are you all right, love?" She said, "Did we win?"
My friend Phyllis, she was a real good mouth organ player. She says, "Oh, we'll go in for this." I said, "Oh, I can't play a mouth organ." "Oh," she said, "I'll show you, I'll teach you how to play." Well, we'd to go on the stage and play in front of all the audiences, you know, and she just learnt me to play one tune. And I think we won a bit of something for having, you know, for going up on the stage.
What did Jenny do?
Because there wasn't many entries.
Consolation prizes.
What did you win?
I think it was a box of talcum powder, something like that.
Do you remember what you played?
Yes.
Yes, I remember the tune that she taught me to play.
Can you still do it?
I think I can. Wait a minute.
Well done.
Well done. And that's worth more than a box of talcum powder, isn't it?
That's it.
Oh, well, that was the tune, and she
And it
could
was
play.
nice all over then.
Well, of course, we did a tremendous lot of national competitions. And I remember Bill Butlin came back from America one day, and he said to me, "Basil, they've got a wonderful idea in America." He said, "because Marlene Dietrich has been nominated as the most glamorous grandmother in America." And he said, "I can see a national competition to find the most glamorous grandmother in Great Britain." And to the best of my knowledge and belief, that's still running.
Good evening, what's your name?
Frances Maloney.
And how many grandchildren have you got?
I've got 4.
Indeed, the competition is still running, and for 25 years, Frances Maloney has been trying to win it. And in that time, she's seen it all.
Oh, yes, I could write a book, but I think one that sticks out in my mind was a certain young lady, and it was the first time she'd never entered before, but she put her name down because her daughter was pregnant. Well, come the time of the pregnancy, it didn't work out like that. The daughter hadn't produced the goods, so the mother just went out and got I don't know how many bottles of olive oil, castor oil, I beg your pardon, and she just pushed them down the daughter, and the daughter did and produced the goods. And the lady went on and went through to the grand final.
Did she win it?
Later on, she did.
Well, Frances didn't advance to the grand final, but she won the heat. And there's always next year.
And of course, it's a Butlins holiday camp. All over the place, you'll find that holiday spirit that makes everything go with a swing. Total strangers are strangers no longer.
Coming up in part 2, the sexy 60s, and how many bodies you could cram into a chalet, what to do with a dead elephant in the camp swimming pool, and how to hypnotise a chicken.
Yes, friendliness is the keynote in everything you do at Butlin.